Now on the September 5th meeting, the first thing that was brought up was the Public Agency Retirement Services, PARS it's called, and you can explain what that is and that there is a little difference than PERS, which is what the state retirement.
Public Employees Retirement.
And this is our own fund here, is that correct?
Well, in a nutshell, it's a vehicle very much like the Public Employees Services Unit or system, except that there are greater investment avenues that could generate a higher rate of return on the contributions that the city makes on behalf of the employee to help pay for their premiums at point of retirement. In other words, the PERS system has its own set of investment avenues to pursue, and they tend to be on the conservative side. And as a result, the last couple of years, the earnings have been pretty meager, and that contributes to this, what we call an unfunded liability, that it's not as much earnings as are necessary to cover our costs once that employee retires and begins to draw upon their employment, their retirement benefits. We may not have enough money there to pay for that expense. So with the PARS program, the city takes that same investment on behalf of the employee and has a much broader range of investment vehicles that can generate higher rates of return to reduce that structural unfunded liability. So that's the presentation was to explain their program. The council was very much in support of continuing on. One of the things that I asked and hope to see in the near future from PARS is to really explain or to build into our annual budget a set amount of money that we should be contributing to PARS so that we don't find ourselves hitting that glass ceiling sometime down the road that this unfunded liability right now is about $22 million that it hits us square in the face, and we're not prepared to be able to underwrite that expense. And so the council has authorized and I had requested that tell us what, based on these investment vehicles that are now to be at our disposal, of how much should we be putting into this fund to pre-fund the liability that we're building over time to underwrite employees' retirement.
Another way of raising money was discussed and the presentation was made, and that is grant writing. And would you explain briefly what the grant writing possibilities are for the city?
Yeah, and I think this flows from the strategic action plan. I'd have to go back and look at the plan itself, but this is not a new issue. The council has talked about the need to be more aggressive in seeking state and federal grants, and this company has been asked to make a proposal to assist us because we don't have grant writers at the city. At one time, years and years ago, the city was very successful in seeking out federal and state grants.
People came offering grants at that time too, didn't they?
I don't know if that, I don't think it was quite that easy, but we had the capacity to dedicate staff resources to seek these grants out, and we're generally very successful. That's not been the case over the last couple of years. We don't have that capacity, dedicated staff to seek out grants, and that's what this contract allows us to do, is to basically hire on a contract basis the staff necessary to go out, identify grants that we might be eligible for, seek those grants, and then it would be optional on our part to have them administer the grants, that is, do the reporting, the accounting, and the like.
It's sort of like I've seen the ads on TV where they advertise, oh hey, there's thousands of grants out there for educational, for college funds, and all you need to do is go do it. Well, the parents have to do that, okay? So basically what you're doing, there's a lot of grants out there, you're hiring somebody to go through all the work, and they know where to look. And they know, one thing I was impressed about, they just don't overload you with, oh, here's a bunch of grants, which one do you like? They try to, let's say, personalize it for grants they know that will work here, and one, have a very high percentage of being approved because it fits so well with the cities.
Well, there's two, maybe three caveats to what you just said. The idea isn't just say, well, run amok, go find us some money and we'll find a way to spend it. No, we need to prioritize, and maybe part of the survey that we just talked about earlier of getting a pulse on what the public's priorities are, is that's where we then focus our grant writing opportunities to issues of great importance to the community. Yeah, it could be rebuilding our water infrastructure, it could be filling potholes, but what I'm saying is that you don't just seek out any grant that may be available and do a dragnet. No, you want to be targeted and focused on things that make the most sense to this city.
Okay, one thing I'm looking forward to, and I've heard it for over a year, and that is the water study report is supposed to be on the agenda for the next city council, and it's based on a year ago, talking to the city council about that Port Hueneme has the highest water rates, some of the lowest quality water at times, and the least high income in the county. And that this water rate plan is designed to spotlight how we can make that a better situation. So what do you expect to see in the report? Have you heard anything about how it's leaning, what's going on?
And I think what you're also talking about is that on the council agenda there was a discussion regarding public information to get the public, first of all, better educated, acquainted with how our water system works, where the water comes from.
From A to Z.
From A to Z. The next step is, hopefully it'll be our next regular meeting, the second meeting in September, will be the beginnings of a water rate study in which the consulting firm that's been hired will be making some preliminary findings and sharing it with the council. Among those findings will be alternative ways in which the water in the future is to be received, treated, and the expense associated with that, translating to the end user, how much are you going to have to pay in the future. It's a study that's been talked about for several years. But finally got legs, and the initial results are coming out in the next council meeting.
Okay, the next report was the city manager report, and since most everyone knows that we lost our assistant city manager, the city manager, Rod Butler, is hiring somebody to take her place on a temporary basis till we can find a permanent person. Can you let the people know what that situation is?
Carmen Nichols, who was our deputy city manager, her last day at the city was about 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And she did. She played so many vital roles in the organization, and the concern has been, well, in a normal recruitment to backfill an executive position of this nature, it could take several months. It could take as much as 6 months. But we don't have that luxury because the operations of the city continue to go on, and Carmen was very instrumental in the implementation of the strategic action plan. And we hate to see that all that effort be placed on hold. And so Mr. Butler, our city manager, took it upon himself, and with our approval at the council meeting, to do a short-term employment contract with an individual that he has familiarity with, that he worked with in human resources at the city of Upland. And so the council approved that temporary arrangement. But it is just that, it's a temporary backfill while we go about doing a more robust and lengthy recruiting process for a permanent hire. So this is a first step to, let's get somebody that is familiar with human resource issues, let's have them hit the ground running and to pick up the slack as a result of Carmen's departure.
Next is the REACH program was discussed. I'm not sure if everybody has heard about what the REACH program does. The easiest reminder was they were really involved in getting the senior citizen Christmas luncheon back on track when the city had no more money for it. And that's one of the things they do. But just tell the people what it's designed for and what the future is for it and how it's going to operate.
Okay, so REACH has been around for a year and a half or so. It's had some success in raising a small amount of money to be able to underwrite things like the senior luncheon. In short, REACH is a nonprofit entity that is largely directed by representatives of the city proper, as well as citizen appointments. And their goal is to raise money for a variety of public programs, art, recreation, and the like. As part of the strategic action plan, our goal is to kind of restructure or retool this entity so that it's more of a citizen-based organization and that the city takes more of a supportive and not a proactive role, allow the citizens to really guide the effort, and also to broaden the kinds of projects that we would like the organization to focus on. Maintaining the museum, historic museum, and the recent resurgence of activity at that facility, the library, which the city is underwriting to the expense of somewhere around $30,000 to $40,000 a year for additional hours of service. So what you saw on the agenda is the revised draft of the kind of, call them the bylaws or the constitution for the organization. Now, this is a consequence, again, of Carmen. This was one of her babies that she was championing, and so it may take longer now to get this organization restructured because it'll require a change in the membership and appointments to the body, as well as to finalize the bylaws. We had hoped to have it up and running by now, but because of our staffing situation, it's more likely to be another month or so before it all come together. The same holds true with the Citizens Advisory Board, which is a keystone of the Strategic Action Plan. Likewise, it had been hoped that that would be up and running, and again, it was an effort that Carmen Nichols was directing. So, because of this glitch in our staffing, some of these initiatives, unfortunately, it's going to be delayed. The priority we're giving on the strategic action plan is the financial side, revenue raising, which, is, again, as we talked earlier, we're trying to bring about to a ballot measure in 218. So that's kind of taking the primary focus right now of what limited resources that we have. But again, these are very valuable, needed programs, REACH and the Citizens Advisory Board. They will come to fruition, it's just we have to be patient.
So, thank you, Mayor.
Oh, my pleasure.
Appreciate it. I think it's really an asset to be able to have the city council meetings, explained as to what's going on, because we've gotten from a lot of just major issues that people understand to the inner workings of what needs to be done, what's going on, and the more you know about it, the more informed you'll be, and we hope it helps you in making your life better here. So thank you, and we'll see you at our next city council review.
Till next time.